Let's call to order the virtual library commission meeting for April 4th and start with a roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Walls.
Here, I apologize.
Commissioner Worsing.
Here.
Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Nafisi.
Here.
Commissioner Willers. Oh, you're muted, Commissioner Willers.
Here.
Okay, and Commissioner Koopman.
Here.
And Chairperson Beauchamp.
Here. All right.
Do we want to record this?
I think that we are recording it. Are you not seeing something?
No.
What are you looking at, Penny?
There's just usually a sign up in the corner of my window that I'm being recorded, and I don't see that this time. But if it's being recorded, that's great. I just wanted to be sure.
It does look like it is recording. So,
okay. My apologies.
It's all good. All right. Commissioner Wells, would you mind leading us in the salute to the flag, please? And if this is the first time you've done it, it can be a little off-putting because of the echo, but if you could lead us in that, that'd be great.
I'm sorry, who did you ask?
Commissioner Wells?
Okay.
Oh, I thought you said Commissioner Willis. Sorry. I sure can. No problem.
It's all good.
For that. All right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Wells, thank you. Okay, I see we do have one guest, City Manager Wasansky. Before we approve the order of agenda, I believe he's here to talk about the budget letter. Maybe we could get a motion and a second to move that to item I1.
I'll move.
I so move.
Okay, I got two moves, but can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any opposed? All right, let's just move that to I2 becomes I1. Let's see, I suppose I need to take a roll call vote. So to approve the order of agenda, Commissioner Koopman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Hall?
Aye.
Commissioner Worsing?
Aye.
And Commissioner Willers, thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And then I see we have a blue folder item, which is the announcement, right, Director Anderson, for our guest?
Correct.
Are there any public comments?
We have a comment under public participation on non-agenda items.
Oh, okay. So no comments on blue folder?
Correct.
Okay. So for the consent calendar, any discussion on the consent calendar?
I have none.
Okay. Could we get a motion a second to approve and file the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Koopman?
I will
Thank
second.
you. Thank you, Commissioner Willers. Do a quick roll call vote on that. Commissioner Koopman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi,
Aye.
Commissioner Walls,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Worsing,
Aye.
and Commissioner Willers.
Yes.
Thank you. We don't have an excluded consent calendar item. So public participation on non-agenda items, was there a comment on that, Director
Yes.
Anderson? Okay.
I will read the E comment. So here's the comment. I would like to send a special heartfelt thanks to Susan and her staff at the South Library. They took the time to reach out about an individual who would sit in the back of the library from the opening of business until closing. It was reported that this individual was difficult at times, making it very uncomfortable for everyone around him, including staff. It was a challenge, but eventually he accepted crisis transitional housing. About a month ago, he was matched to an opportunity for permanent supportive housing. We have turned in all documents, filled out housing subsidy paperwork, and if all goes as planned, he will be moving into his own apartment by the end of this month. He will have the support he needs right there on site to help him reach his dream of becoming self-sufficient as he once was. Together, we can end homelessness one person at a time. I am excited and ready for the next. Gratefully, Lila Amura, new city employee, homeless housing navigator.
Wow. Thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you. That's great.
Fabulous.
Okay, so are there any other comments on non-agenda items from public? No. Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda is discussion of the budget letter. Director Anderson, should we start with the letter or should we start with our guest?
Well, I believe City Manager Witsansky really is here to answer questions about the budget, but we felt this would be the most appropriate agenda item for him to do so. So maybe we should start with any questions you might have for him.
Well, and I might add as well, thank you for moving it forward. It's good to see everybody. We are starting the process of general budget preparation, and we are reaching out to each of the commissions to provide an opportunity, really a listening tour to hear from all of you as you would like to add any suggestions for us to consider as we begin to prepare the draft budget and submit it to council, rather than simply comment on what comes next after the proposed budget. Try to provide that input early. This was the first of April, so I was heartened to see that you had the budget letter agenda material ready to go, so we didn't have to pull it back and put a more formal title to the discussion item. But what I would have framed it as originally is just here to provide, receive input from you and answer any questions you might have. So feel free to take up the budget letter and anything you'd like to put into that document formally for passing on to council. I'm here in a sense, sort of in part hijacking that conversation so we can also have a more general budget input session that I would take talk to our staff about as we prepare the annual budget and sort of listen from you directly. So I'm here to hear from all of you and happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I don't see any hands raised, so maybe I'll just start by pointing you to the budget letter that we've written. For us, it was about increasing the hours to match where we were prior to COVID. So you can see, I'm sure you're aware of our proposal to evaluate OpenPlus Access, which we're also going to talk about. I think it might be coming up. I know you may not stay for that, but it's a pretty cool technology that we think can lower the operating costs and can give more access to the public. And then we also talk about circulation. I was pleased to see that I don't want to jump topics, but the physical circulation has gone up as people are returning to the library. And so having we've had to make requests every year to get the funds to refresh circulation. So we've asked for something a little more permanent. And then we have some technology upgrades that we want to make. So those are important to us at the Library Commission. Are there any other comments or questions from the commission?
Well, one of the things you all have in the letter is about increasing staffed hours as well, because we had the cut in the 2020-21 budget.
And that sounds like a return to where we were at prior to COVID, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Great. No, you are by far the most organized commission when it comes to providing budget input. I applaud you all for that. It's been helpful. Susan had a conversation about your suggestions as well. So appreciate all of the comments, and we'll pay close attention to that letter as we draft the budget and submit it for consideration to council. We are still in this strange recovery mode where I think we have an abundance of one-time resources. And there are still some concerns about our structural revenues and expenses. We have recovered in the area of property tax. In fact, we never really fell short in property tax. That's been our strongest and brightest revenue source over the last few years. We've recovered generally on the sales tax side. We haven't fully recovered on the transient occupancy tax side, largely because of an arrangement we have with our Marine Avenue hotels. We helped stopgap financing years ago upon construction. We created what's called an authority funded reserve, which is really a pot of money that their lenders can draw down from under austere conditions and circumstances. Of course, the pandemic being one that met those qualifications. It was odd in looking at that threshold to determine what really would have to occur for the lending community to actually be able to access those funds. And this, lo and behold, COVID and the pandemic, it was one that lowered their occupancy to well below 30% for a substantial period in there, and really triggered the waterfall provision that allowed them to pull back on those funds. So it was great for them, great for their lenders. It's bad for us in that now, as they've recovered, they have to allocate all of their new transient occupancy tax to that fund and repay that $3 million reserve. So while they're humming along well now, post-pandemic, we're not going to see any of those proceeds for another year. So that's the one area where structurally we're still short. We're doing very well everywhere else. So I feel good about it. I hope we'll be able to propose some restoration of the staff hours. And I know the book budget, the circulation issue has been out there for a long time. We've tried to continue to seed it so we're not falling further behind. I know the commission would love to see us restore that account and permanentize it. Hopefully, if structural revenues are there, we can make that recommendation. If not, I can pledge to you today, we'll recommend at least another one-time tranche for the next fiscal year. And then maybe as we reach structural normalcy come 23, 24, we can get there. But I know the library hours are of concern, and we're eager to try to restore those, if not tweak them a little bit and align them with maybe contemporary visitorship. And was really intrigued, Susan, share with me your thoughts on that sort of, I guess you would call it staffless program. That was really intriguing. So we'll explore that. I think we have a strategic plan objective to look into that. So great suggestion. Thank you for that. So really appreciate this commission, and really, we don't always move your recommendations forward, but no, we always do consider them. And you really you've been for the last several years very well organized and very helpful to our process. So thank you for that. Any other?
Yeah, Commissioner Walls?
So first of all, thank you for coming today. It's good to see you here and to get a little more direct information about the budget process and kind of how that works and the balancing. One of the things I just wanted you to be aware of, and everyone on the commission is already aware, during the pandemic, we made a very concerted effort to really promote the digital resources. Of course, at first when everyone was on lockdown, and then now because people are becoming more familiar with them. We've also started an outreach program to our different districts so that we can make people aware of all of the wonderful digital supplies and services that we have. We anticipate that as we go forward, that digital use will either remain the same or increase. And so when we come back to take a look at restoration, I think once things stabilize, once we are fully open again, if we do see those digital numbers staying where they are with those sorts of funding required, and then also the physical circulation increasing, we may see a larger need, or definitely more adoption and more traffic in the library. And that'll be a great place to be. But it may come in the form of additional requests when we get to that point.
Yep, appreciate that. Makes sense. Yeah.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Hi, Mr. Wazansky. I just want to say how excited we are for the new leadership in this city, and we can already feel a definite change by just your words on share the words that you're sharing regarding our budget letter. Sometimes it feels like it falls on deaf ears, but we appreciate that you guys are paying attention and see how hard we're working to share recommendations to you. So just wanted to say kudos to you. We're excited to have you on board and look forward to more budget letters your way.
Thank you, Candace. That's very kind.
Commissioner Willers?
Yes, I'd also like to welcome Mike as our manager. I think it's fabulous. I would like to remind him that the old argument of guns versus butter, we are the butter, the library is the butter. And we think we're very important because rather than spending so much money on police, remember that the library offers teen programs after school and other programs for kids, and we are the butter to their guns. So please keep us in mind.
Appreciate that. Got my start in city management in the Parks and Recreation area. Also, while I was in Torrance, we merged the library function into our department. And, back in the day, it was sort of positive diversion programs. And we certainly recognize the value of library and everything else that's actually constructive rather than active and
Exactly.
sort of, enforcement in nature. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Bursing?
I just wanted to recognize Director Anderson. You mentioned that the Library Commission has been kind of front and center on a lot of these things over several years, and it's definitely Director Anderson that has helped guide us. So I wanted to give her the appropriate thanks and recognition as well.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I echo those sentiments. Yes. It was nice to hear that. Thank you.
Commissioner Nafisi, did you have something to add again, or is that just a residual hand? Okay, all right. I think that's all the commissioner input we have.
Well, thank you all. It's great to see you, and enjoy the rest of your meeting, and we'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Thank you for making the time.
Night, everybody.
All right, we still have the letter, and in the packet, we need to make a decision on whether or not it's final and should be printed and sent. I guess, is there any discussion on the content?
Can I speak to just a couple things on the letter?
Yeah, please, Director Anderson.
We are juggling a lot of issues. So in terms of the hours, and I, whatever you all want to go with or reorganize in terms of priorities is fine with me. But we have so the North Branch used to be open from 12 to 8, Monday through Thursday. If we keep, 7 to 8 at both the North Branch and the main library is an hour that so far nobody's complained about us being closed at 7 as opposed to 8. That's our slowest hour. So if we remain closed at 7 in both locations, then all the full-time staff is on one schedule instead of 2 shifts. And we are still down one of the full-time clerks. That position was still frozen. And so we're trying to cover both the locations. So it is kind of helpful to be on one shift. Not that we can't suggest also going back to 8 o'clock. But the first suggestion we're making is right now we're only open 1 to 7 at North Branch, Monday through Thursday. So the first suggestion was to go back to noon to 7. But then I thought we could also maybe add that 7 to 8 hour from 11 to noon, so that we'd be at full restoration of North Branch hours, but we'd be open 11 to 7 instead of 12 to 8. And I'm kind of thinking we might have more people in the library from 11 to 7 instead of 7 to 8. So that's one thing. And then of course, we've also got the OpenPlus Access in the mix there as well. So lots to think about in terms of hours there. And then we've also suggested, we've had the most complaints about the half days on Mondays at Maine. So we suggested getting back to an 8-hour open hours on Monday. The second suggestion was getting back to 8 hours on Friday. But we would, if they gave us all of that, we'd still be down some hours at Maine because it used to be open 10 to 8. So if they gave us those 2 days back, we'd still be open 11 to 7 instead of 10 to 8 at Maine. So we'd still be down a few hours. But that does keep everybody on one schedule. And like I said, the 7 to 8 hour is tends to be the least busy. So I don't know if we want to add, yet another line and maybe tie that to getting the full-time clerk position back, asking for full restoration of Maine hours. And then also in terms of the technology, I have something to say about that too, but maybe we want to talk about the hours first.
Commissioner Koopman, I know you had your hand raised. Do you want to talk about the hours or something else?
No, I had raised my hand for something different. So let's
go ahead, Commissioner Koopman, and then we can come back to hours if other people have input on it.
Okay. No, I actually thank you for the background on the hours. That actually makes it, I do appreciate that. It does make our letter stronger, I think, if we move open back to 11 o'clock. So thank you, Director Anderson. I just have, thank you for writing the letter. This letter is great. I just wanted to make some changes, more edit changes, because I thought like the subject is somewhat verbose, and maybe we can start. It's fine because we have to fit a lot in there. So maybe we can just move the FY fiscal year 2022 to 2023 to the beginning of the subject line. That way, people know it's for a future budget request that we're asking for, as opposed to them trying to like go through all that and then like, oh, this is something that's pertinent, like immediate. Do you see what I'm saying? And then the other thing, okay, great. And the other two things were just consistency. We have FY 2022-2023, and then towards the end we have FY 2022-23. So do we want to make it truncated, or do we want to actually write out the entire fiscal year timeline? And the other thing is, in our bullet points, we state the cost, but in the paragraph following the bullet point, we have the cost, but we write it out. We write out the cents, which I don't think we really need the cents, right? Oh,
in the last paragraphs, we put 0.0.
Yes, we did put 00, exactly.
Yeah, all the way through. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just for consistency.
And your suggestion is take it out?
Yes, please.
And then, I'm sorry, Commissioner Koopman, did you say your first suggestion was to start the subject line with FY 2022 to 2023 request?
Yeah, so make it, so subject : FY 2022 to 2023 request for funding. That way anyone who sees this document knows it's for a few 2022 to 2023.
Okay.
Because I think they go through that and then they see this is a third letter. They're like, I don't want them to dismiss the letter, right? I want them to continue reading the letter.
And Director Anderson, do you want to weigh in on the 2022-23 versus 2022-2023?
What does Commissioner Nafisi think?
I think writing the FY is fine, but just be consistent. I think just writing FY is
fine. FY 2022-23?
2023?
Yeah.
Okay.
Regarding the hours, I say ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars. Ask for as many hours as you need and let them cut back,
So, well, what we do is we could, if we went back to 10 to 8 at Main Library, which is what it used to be, then I think maybe we should tie that into maybe asking if we could have the full-time clerk position back just in terms of coverage. So we could do that. I still kind of like, so like I said, North Branch, if we go 11 to 7, that's full restoration of hours at North Branch, which I think would do better than 12 to 8. Unless, yeah.
And Director Anderson, do we have one more meeting, one more turn of the
Yes.
crank? Can we make all these edits and then approve it in 2 months and still be okay?
Yes, so our next meeting should be June 6th, which should be time, I think. I mean, they read, let's see. The proposed budget is presented on June 7th. So I think we could get it in there as a blue folder item anyway.
Okay, Commissioner Hall?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, I'm taking notes here on the letter. For main library, were you saying that it had the Monday is currently opening at 3 and they're open till 7, or is that one till 8?
So it used to be 10 to 8, Monday through Thursday, and then 9 to 6 on Friday. Currently, it's 3 to 7 on Monday and 2 to 6 on Friday. So we have 2 half days. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is 11 to 7. So if we made North 11 to 7, that means all the staff works 10 to 7. And so we don't have 2 shifts.
Okay. So I guess kind of in line with what Commissioner Nafisi was saying too, I think when we were looking over the letter, I sort of agree that I feel like we should ask for maybe even more than what you want. Why limit yourself now? They're probably going to cut it back anyway. So I think whatever it is that you all think works best for you should be the thing that we request. And then we can kind of cut from there. And it makes sense to me to maybe cut back the evening hours rather than the morning ones, just based on what you're seeing. And then the other question,
The other possibility, I'm sorry, if we really want to get creative, sorry to interrupt,
go ahead,
is we could keep 11 to 7 at Main, which means that we are short 8 hours, less than what we used to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we could add some of those hours to opening up Friday at North. But then, of course, how does OpenPlus also possibly fare into that? You see what I'm saying?
And maybe
Right.
Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Nafisi are saying, Director Anderson, that maybe rather than getting into this minutia, let's just ask for a big chunk of money and say to restore the hours. And then you'll have the flexibility based on the budget they give you to do this. Maybe we're giving them too much information here, unless you think that we're in a better position by having them do the line item, okay, 15, okay, 38.
Well, I will say this also, because there's so many, moving parts to this, is that I was also told I should put in a decision package asking for this. So I did put in a decision package, which reflects what you guys are asking for in the letter, but no more than that. So what you all could say is something, and we can work on this, but something like this restore us to this level. And if we could have a full-time clerk, we could have full restoration of hours, and that would cost X. So you could ask for a little more than what I did in the decision package, which potentially I could also end up rewriting that too once I have the meeting with the city manager about the budget.
Commissioner Hall, did you have more to add?
For me, yeah, I just think ask for the maximum of what it is that we're looking for now in the letter. And then as they pull it back on us, that's when we can say, hey, okay, if we can't have that, then let's try for those as open access hours, or let's try for that in some other way. But I just wouldn't scale it back right up front. And then the last thing I was going to say is and I could be misinterpreting, but I'm hearing maybe that also there's been some things that have been learned throughout the pandemic of, maybe that 7 to 8 time just isn't a big to even necessarily want. And I think that's okay too. we don't have to go back completely to what it was pre-pandemic if you've learned that it actually works much better to just have one shift and that you don't want to have to deal with scheduling 2 separate shifts. So it's, that's really, I think, for you to decide what is the best thing that's actually working for the library either way.
Commissioner Worsing.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One relates to revising the letter. Is there a way to revise it and get it out for review prior to our next meeting? Because on more than one occasion, we've made revisions, and then when it came back to the commission, there were additional revisions to make. And if our meeting is days before the city council meeting, that doesn't get a lot of time to turn it around again. So that's my first question. Is there a mechanism for us to review revisions so that we're not discussing this level again in 2 months? That's my first question.
Okay, so the answer to your first question, I would say we could do it with a subcommittee, but not with the whole committee. But I know it was Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Beauchamp who originally wrote this letter, right? So we could probably add a third. Was it Commissioner Beauchamp, or you want to? We could probably.
I was one.
We could probably add a third person to this for this.
You've done so many letters, Director Anderson. Sorry.
So we could probably add a third person to review. I mean, I'm thinking.
Commissioner Hall and I were the subcommittee for this letter.
I think, and I'm sorry, just to go back to the hours, I think tying, because right now we've asked for is additional part-time hours to get to this level that we're asking for here. And I think maybe tying full restoration to a full-time clerk would be good. The city could decide if they want to do that right now or not. I almost think, should we try to get through one more winter and see what happens with COVID before we go to that absolute full restoration? Because I'm still a little nervous as to what might happen in the fall. But and we are not quite at the door count we used to be yet, although I'm going to talk about, we are adding back some adult programs and stuff. So, we're still not quite back to the business that we were pre-COVID, but hopefully that will change over the summer. But
another answer, maybe, Commissioner Worsing, is that the commission could approve the letter knowing that there's going to be some edits to the hour section, for example, that the commission feels like the content is there. There's some edits requested, but we could approve the subcommittee to incorporate those changes and get it done prior to the next meeting.
Or even, would you want to bring it back to the next meeting for just to get it done? And
I think what Commissioner Worsing was saying, there's not enough time. And her thought was maybe let's get the bones of the idea approved, have the subcommittee write it and get it to the city council. I'm sorry, Commissioner Worsing, if I misrepresented.
No, exactly. Because on more than one occasion, we've talked about edits. The edits were made, and then when it came back in front of the entire commission again, additional edits were being asked for, and we just don't have time for that. If in fact the budget meeting is a couple days later, so I'm just trying to figure out what's the process that we can use to incorporate changes and get the approval. So it sounds like having the mission today approve it in concept, giving the authority to the subcommittee to make the additional changes might get us there. So that was my first question. If I could ask my second question, we do seem to get into a lot of detail in the letter about hours. If the city approves that, does that tie our hands? I mean, that we are forced to have those hours? And if that's the case, then I agree. We should really just say we want to get back to full hours or something. So I guess my question is, how much flexibility do we have once the city approves what we've given them to make adjustments in the hours if we think it's needed.
I think there'll probably be a ton of discussion about the hours during the budget process. And of course, we've got the OpenPlus factor in there as well. So I think it was Commissioner Beauchamp who said maybe we should just we could just generally say it would cost $30,000 in part-time funds to get us back to full-time North Branch hours, X amount in part-time funds to get us, part way to main library hours, but keep everybody on the same shift. And if we added a full-time clerk back in, we could go to prior hours, et cetera. We have to massage that, but.
Okay. And then if I could ask a third question and then I'm done. We've mentioned the OpenPlus Access, and I know that was part of the strategic plan, but there's a lot that needs to come together before that occurs. That's not something that we're going to be seeing in the next few months, is it? I mean, this might be a year out.
Well, I'm supposed to bring a report back. I believe it's June 7th that I'm supposed to bring the report back on OpenPlus Access. So that's how it's sort of dovetailing with this budget conversation. So there's going to have to be a lot of decisions about where they want to spend their money. And I am going to talk a little bit more about OpenPlus Access too when we get to that item. But so that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of possibilities here at the moment.
Okay, Commissioner Walz.
And Commissioner Wersing, thank you. That was a very good segue because that was also my question. We do bring up OpenPlus Access. It's noted a few times in the letter. It does seem to be a longer term and maybe a bit more complicated to get all of those wheels in motion. And so what we might want to do is maybe remove those references from our letter around staffing and hours and present something like, first of all, I completely agree with opening at 11 as opposed to 1 or 12 as opposed to 1, mostly because it's more convenient for people that maybe need to pop in on their lunch hour or, can't get there in the afternoon. And so increasing the hours, I think, is a really great idea. I think if we keep it with the 7 p.m. timeframe based on circulation and the traffic numbers that we've seen so far, that shouldn't have a detrimental impact on use of the library if we don't have that 7 to 8 hour. And while I most of the time will agree, ask for the moon and maybe get a star, I think it's nice that we're showing a little bit of restraint and that we've thought through this to say, hey, we can still close at 7 and serve the community with this additional funding for these additional hours. So step 1 would be ask for the funding for the additional hours to close at 7 with the expanded hours, both North Branch and Main Branch on Mondays and Fridays. Tie the, Director Anderson, like you were saying, tie the full restored access in all of its glory to restoring this position that has been frozen. That makes total sense. It's logical. And then that can then be kind of a separate, maybe a separate decision to say, okay, maybe we get the hours now, and then later, if we're still needing some more, then we go to all of its glory. And then with the OpenPlus Access, if and when that's approved, we can still really drive toward getting that approved. And at that point in time, maybe we can reevaluate and say we don't need all of these hours for both branches if we have that technology in next year or the following year or whenever we get it, so that we have a couple of different kind of stair steps to get to where we want to go, and also show that we've thought this through and we're not trying to, ask for a ton more than we need. That makes sense?
To me.
Okay, Commissioner Hall.
And I think we have open access more on the discussion later, so we might be able to talk about this more too, but it does seem like it would make a lot of sense. I really agree to kind of separate those two out, since the OpenPlus Access is also going to require a lot of upfront investment, where overall it would be something that would probably save us money, but it's not going to look that way, I think, with the upfront cost that would be required when we put it forward.
So Commissioner Hall, just to poke at that a little. So you're suggesting that we do what? So it starts with in priority order we request. So there's 4 requests. Are you saying that maybe that whole section gets rephrased to say open? I don't know. Maybe I'll just ask the question. How would you do it differently?
Right. So I think that like number 1, for example, it just has that last sentence right at the end that says the OpenPlus Access was implemented, then that would give us additional unstaffed open hours. So I would maybe just remove that out from number 1 in the way that the letter is currently and keep it separate from the request that we're making for the hours restoration.
So just striking it from number 1 complete. That's the edit you're suggesting?
Mm-hmm. I think
Okay.
that's the only place actually in this request letter where we talk about OpenPlus.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Hall? Commissioner Willers?
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
That I don't think we should talk, since the strategic plan includes the OpenPlus Access, it probably shouldn't be in the immediate budget. And that we should just not include it because it will always be a separate topic and it's always going to change the hours that we may or may not offer if it gets approved, if we like it, which we'll hear about later, and if it gets approved. But let's go for the hours now. And
So you're saying the same thing, basically strike that sentence so that it doesn't have it in there.
yeah, because it's not relevant to what we need to do for this immediate future. We only need it, we're asking for it as part of the strategic plan that we could do this in the future. And we don't know when that future is. So I'm just agreeing absolutely with this all.
Awesome. So it feels like we've got, I'm sorry, is there more?
Well, I just wanted to mention one thing, and I don't know, the thing about the technology costs is that, so we've got the collection, we mentioned the collection money again. And then the thing about the technology costs is I did find out that for a couple of years, we'd asked for $8,000 to be added to the technology budget. That was permanently added. I just found out. But of course, what's happened is that Cersei Dynex goes up about $4,000 or $5,000 every year. So I still have that going up. Now, Scenic has gone up only, which is our internet connection, has not gone up just a little bit every year. And Envisionware, which is our printing system, is a little bit hazy. So I managed to, I had to balance the budget and I managed to cover Cersei Dynex by taking a little bit away from Envisionware and Scenic and taking a little bit out of our supply budget. So, and I do have a decision package asking for that $5,000. It feels like kind of a paltry sum, and I'm not sure, part of me thinks, should I even ask for it this year? But then of course, next year it'll be 10
more.
10.
So I don't even know if you guys want to include that in there or not. I lowered it from 8 to 5 in the letter because I figured out that they did give us that 8,000 permanently. But so that's up to you all.
So if I'd suggest that, let me try and summarize the input that we've gathered. So there's consensus that, there's on the table to move fiscal year 2022-23 to the front in the subject, and then use that 22-23 nomenclature in the rest of the letter. We have at least a couple of commissioners that say just strike the OpenPlus Access from the priority order. And then we have strike the sense from the requests in the second to the last and the third to the last paragraph. There is discussion about, the in priority order section 1 through 4. Should we just make that a bigger request with less granularity?
Yeah.
And I don't know that we have consensus on that. So maybe if we could have a motion to make those edits and then somebody take a stand on what we should do with 1 through 4, maybe we could have a discussion on that. And if we agree, maybe we can go from there. So Commissioner Walls?
Another good segue. I was just thinking about the priorities 1 through 4, and I think it might read a little better with maybe one, maybe not priority order, but here's what we'd like to do with the North Branch. Here's what we'd like to do with the main library. So have just 1 and 2 or something.
Do you want to make that into a motion?
Well,
Maybe discussion first?
yeah. The other option would be to say, we're requesting $30,000 to restore hours at the North Branch and whatever to restore 8 of the 16 hours at the main library so that there's full days on Monday and Friday. And with the addition of the full-time clerk position that was frozen, we could go back to full hours or something pretty general like that. I do have it broken down in some granularity in the decision package. And I have a feeling they're probably going to ask for a bunch of different budget response reports for like these hours versus these hours kind of thing. So just a heads up for that.
So Director Anderson, your guidance is that we should give you the pen to change 1 through 4 in a way that will be well received by City Council? Or
yeah, and another thing I was going to suggest is if you all want to vote on maybe even having a third person as part, have Commissioner Beauchamp and Hall again with maybe a third person to work on a revamped letter that you all would be willing to say, I'm confident that you're going to take our changes and,
Okay, Commissioner Wells, I see your hands down. Commissioner, do you want to add anything before we go to Commissioner Hall? So, all right, Commissioner Hall.
I just had one final quick question, and then I can make a motion for us to move forward. But is number 4 the same as number 1?
Well,
no.
I was kind of trying to do a tiered order of which you guys were welcome to change around a priority with different, and so it's the same cost, but it's just adding 11 to 12 in addition to 12 to 1.
Oh, okay, I see it. So the first one is adding that 1 hour, and then the last request asked for another hour.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. All right, so that might be something that we could just combine if we're saying we just want to go for the full ask for the number of hours that you want. Okay, so I will make a motion that we make the changes that have been proposed to the current letter that were just nicely summarized, and that then we move forward as needed with either discussion or editing from the subcommittee on the actual priority order items.
Does anybody have a comment on the text?
Commissioner Koopman, you had a comment?
Well, I had a clarification on the third volunteer. So are you asking, or are you suggesting that with this third volunteer, we do not bring the revisions back to the commission? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion to make the edits that we've discussed with a 3-person subcommittee authorized to speak on behalf of the Library Commission so that we get the letter to City Council prior to our next meeting. Is there a second for that motion?
I second. Do you guys need to nominate somebody for the committee as part of that, or is that?
Oh yeah, we probably should do that.
Well, that could be another motion.
Is there an amendment to the motion to add someone? Is somebody like to volunteer?
I'm happy to volunteer.
Commissioner Worsing? Sorry, Commissioner Koopman, was your hand up again for a different comment?
sorry, I just inadvertently minimized my entire screen. I apologize. No, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, all right. So Commissioner Worsing has amended the motion to include herself to the subcommittee. Is there a second to the motion on the table?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Willers. Any discussion on that? All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Koopman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walls,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Worsing,
Yes.
and Commissioner Willers.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I think I took some notes, Director Anderson. I'll send you the revisions and I'll let you send it out to this new group. And then we can send it to City Council before the next meeting. The next item on the agenda is I-1, which is discussion of communication with council members.
Okay, I just put this on the agenda just in case anybody wanted to discuss how it went with, taking the brief to their council members meeting. I know Commissioner Walls did take hers to a meeting. So, okay, great. So if anybody wants to talk about how it was received or.
Sure. We had, I talked to Commissioner Obashi. We discussed it at the meeting.
I mean, council person, sorry.
Council, yes.
Sorry.
Council person.
Yeah.
Obashi. And it was, he asked for in the meeting, our regular monthly meeting, he asked for an update on what's happening at the library. So I told him everything that was happening at the library. And I basically took everything that we know that I've written and told him all these wonderful things. And he was avidly taking notes. We had complaints to Councilperson Obashi about the hours at the North Branch, as you know. And so one of the things was, I did mention OpenPlus Access was in the future, and that we were going to ask in the current budget for restoration of some hours, that he would see that, in fact, at the council meeting at some point in the budget meetings. And he said, great, Courses of the World, you can get that at the library? And I went, yes. So he was pleased, and a lot of people were very interested in the things he could get. So what can I tell you? It's very well received.
All right.
That's awesome. Anyone else?
I can give an update from District 2. So I was in contact with Councilperson Lowenstein, who had already put together the agenda for the meeting that he was having. This had been 6 weeks ago by now. And he, instead of burying us in the agenda somewhere, he gave us the front and center opening spot. And so it was only about 5 minutes, but it was when people were, early in the meeting and energetic and paying attention. And the briefing that Commissioner Willers had put together that Director Anderson distributed was very well received. And there were a lot of the same responses where I didn't realize we had that, or wow, we can get all of this training for free, especially around kind of some of the computer skills and job upskilling and things like that. So that was very exciting. And Commissioner Worsing, I do acknowledge, I believe we are in the same district, so we can certainly tag team on that or work together on the next presentation if you'd like. I'd be happy and appreciative of that.
Thank you. That's awesome. Any other stories? So I have to confess, I had a conflict, so I emailed it to my council person and I didn't get a response. So I have to go to the next meeting, I guess.
Who's your council person?
MD, Laura MD.
So Commissioner Willers did compose another one for April, so I just sent that out. I mean, you can feel free that if you didn't have a chance to communicate the last one to communicate both of them, or anything you want to add. So yeah, we'll just see how it goes. I mean, this is great that the information's getting out there, and it seems like it's being well received.
I would like to see it go to the mayor too. I would like to see it go to Mike Wasansky also.
Well, Commissioner Willers, maybe you should send it to the mayor also.
I would be happy to.
Yeah. Commissioner Willers, this is really cool. I think this is a neat thing you're doing. So thank you.
Great.
Any more discussion on communication with council members? Commissioner Nafisi?
I just wanted to share that I have shared our a few of the priorities that we were working on with the mayor too, but he would appreciate always something written. A lot of the conversations I have are kind of in passing or on the phone while we're chatting. So by all means, some information to him, but he's aware of a couple of big initiatives that we're working on, like the access, and he was really excited about it.
Cool. Thank you. Any more discussion on communication with council members before we move to OpenPlus Access? Okay, we'll move on to OpenPlus Access.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you all know that I did take a trip to Santa Monica to see the Ocean Park branch with my technical services librarian. And the thing about the Ocean Park branch, and I think this is true of a couple of branches in the Santa Monica Public Library, it was completely closed completely after the budget in 2021. So OpenPlus allowed it to be open, at least somewhat for the public. And it was open a couple of full days a week, which they're planning to do at another branch as well. So one of the first thing that we noticed was that they do have it staffed with what they call a library services officer, which kind of looks like a security guard, but it's not technically a security guard. And I think one of the reasons they have it staffed is because it's a full day, as opposed to what I found out in Ventura, if you guys remember, that the only time they had a security guard show up was when they were open on Sundays all day for the closing hours, which, by the way, they actually did have somebody spend the night in the restroom and the security guard missed the person. So they have had one incident since spoke to us. Yeah. But anyway, now they're back open Sunday afternoon, so they don't have the security guard. So what I'm sort of sensing is that because, El Retiro has not opened yet in Torrance. And what I am sensing is that they were just planned to be open a couple of hours in the morning before they officially opened, and it was going to be unstaffed. So I'm sort of getting the sense that if it's open without any staff, but then the staff is coming in after a couple of hours, people feel okay with that. But I think it's just having it unstaffed and nobody there at closing either, which makes people a little bit nervous. But anyway, and then they did have like a library assistant working downstairs away from the public also during those hours. So, that is something to consider. But other than that, I mean, they have some security cameras. They're very discreet. They look like they're just sort of part of the ceiling. You wouldn't even really notice them. It doesn't really offer full coverage. I don't think the security cameras, but for the corners and stuff, they would capture that. They were happy to see the staff it was sort of a slow start to getting used. So they were very happy to see when we were there that there was somebody with their laptop, using the Wi-Fi. There were a couple of people on the computers. Like, it wasn't just people checking out and leaving. There were actually people sitting there, using the library. So it seems like more and more it is getting well used. I think the services officer helps like a lot of maybe like elderly people who have a hard time figuring out how to get in the door and stuff like that. So, and then they also had a phone that, other libraries are open during that time, like the Central Library, so that you could call for help to the Central Reference Desk as well. So that's something to sort of consider, that you would have it open when there is another library open, and yeah, so it was definitely a very interesting conversation. Like I said, El Retiro is still closed. I'm really hoping that they open before I have to turn this report in, although if they don't, I'll try to find out what I can for their planning. I will also say that we did get a quote from Biblioteca, but they cannot provide the security cameras for North Branch because it's kind of a complicated space. So I'm having to go to the company that does security cameras for the city to get a quote from them. And we're also trying to figure out if the current doors would work or if we'd have to replace the doors, because that would be an expense as well. And there's also interior doors at the North Branch. So those would probably have to be left unlocked the night before. So there's a lot to consider, but we're still kind of ironing it out. And even if the council decided to Commissioner Wall's point, even if the council decided that they wanted to implement it wouldn't get implemented until the following spring or something. I mean, it would take a while to get it implemented, so it wouldn't just be immediate. But I think it's a great thing to explore. They may just decide, hey, you know what? Let's just add staffed hours back, and not fool this. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes and how much the security system will cost, and anything that has to be done with the doors. If there is anything that has to be done there, we're talking to them about that too.
Commissioner Koopman?
Excuse me. Thank you for the report. I'm actually, given what I've heard right now, I'm actually really glad we took that out of the letter. There seems to be much more research and just more research we need to do and more accommodations we need to make in order for open access to be really, truly successful. I mean, it's a great option. I think we're all on board for it. But the gentleman sleeping in the restroom, that really bothered me. It's a concern, right? And we don't want that. So all those things, thanks for thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. I do want to know, will we be able to get a tour or no? Is that not possible?
With El Retiro, you mean?
Mm-hmm. I know it's closed. I know you said it was closed, but.
Yeah, I hope so. That's why I'm hoping that it's open before I turn in this report. But yes, I think we should be. I think, or at the very least, if we have library cards for there, we could go. But I think I could get a couple of us together without it being a Brown Act violation, right? That we could go have a tour. But if they're not open before June, I'll try to find out exactly what they're planning in terms of their policies and include it in the report. I know when I talked to the director who now is, she's moved on to Santa Cruz, that it was going to be unstaffed. So.
Commissioner Hall?
I just wanted to clarify, because I feel like when we've talked about OpenPlus in the past, that the goal for Redondo, for either Main or for North Branch, has more been for the morning hours prior to opening with staff.
Well, right. It could only be implemented at North, but North is closed on Fridays, for instance. So that would be a possibility too. And then we'd even talked about, we have no Sunday service. So there could potentially be Sunday service. Although the issue with that is if we opened it on Sundays and Main is closed on Sundays, there is nobody for them to call for help and stuff like that. So that is something to consider.
Okay.
So let's consider with that,
no staff that's coming at all, and would have to be closed down also with no staff.
Yeah, and it's possible also we could start out with, just morning hours and expand it later. There's no cost to expand it, but it in an initial trial, maybe start small, see if there's any problems and how well people are adapting to it.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Worsing?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, El Retiro is not open because of the other damage they had
Right,
to
correct.
the building. It has nothing to do with OpenPlus.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on OpenPlus Access? All right, I don't think the commission needs to take action. So the next item is J1, discussion of signage on the main library north exterior wall.
Okay, this was referral to staff from Commissioner Walls, and just in the interest of time, I'll just say, because I think this will impact the discussion a little bit, that I did bring this up with City Manager Mike Witsansky at our meeting, because I wanted to see what his input was, so I would have that for you all. And he kind of encouraged going with locations in the city where they are already hanging banners. So he kind of encouraged under the King Harbor sign, for instance. So, and I do want to hear from Commissioner Walls what her vision was, but again, because we only meet every other month, I wanted to come up with at least one option for our meeting. So I did talk to community services, and they did, you can hang a banner under the King Harbor sign for 2 weeks at a time. And they said they would waive the fee for us if we wanted to do a summer reading program banner under there, but we would have to pay for the SRP banner, but we could make it fairly generic so that we would have it long-term. So that's just one option, but I think probably also want to hear what Commissioner Walls was envisioning.
Commissioner Koopman, you have your hand up. Do you want to go?
Well, I just had a question. It can wait till after Commissioner Walls speaks, so I can lower it.
All right, Commissioner Walls, did you want to respond to Director Anderson's question?
Sure, absolutely. I think the initial intent is, we have such a beautiful library. It's such a gorgeous building. It attracts attention because of its stature and its placement. Right there on PCH, it's a heavily trafficked area. And so the idea was, the more that we try to encourage people to use the library, to come into the library, that would be a good place to announce or at least showcase some of the programs that we have, or even, things like maybe we put together a collection of books to read around the Alta Vista Garden or beach life, or things that are happening, around the city, but mostly to say, hey, here's this beautiful building. It's your library. Come in and see it and experience it and use the services. And so I like the idea of the King Harbor banner as well. I think that's a really good option. The challenge there, of course, is that if you're driving south on PCH, then the library is, I think, behind you once you get to that corner, which could be okay.
The library is south. Well, it depends on which one you're going to, I guess. But yeah, that corner, the library is south of the King Harbor.
You're right.
sign, right?
So you're thinking the King Harbor sign, which is on the 190th and PCH, and then that little Catalina Street, I think is what it is. Okay, that could be a really good option, especially if it's inexpensive and or free.
Well, I don't know if, we have hung banners on the side of the library before. We did it for the Friends, but when they had their big book sale. So have done that. One thing, we could do the King Harbor sign for the summer reading program, but not rule out thinking about using the side of the building for something as well at some point. That's just an idea.
Or even maybe for long term, as we start doing additional budget requests and things, maybe even a marquee or something like they have at the high school to say, here's what's going on. And then, of course, it could be dynamically updated by staff or by a service provider if we didn't have the people to staff it.
I know the city manager did want me to tell you all that they're trying to do more advertising on the city cable channel as well. And then we do have the digital signs that are but you have to be inside a building to see those,
If the art commission is going to talking about doing murals, why can't we do a mural of a big open book on the side of the library? Just a thought. So people know it's the library for a start.
Thank you, Commissioner Wellers. Commissioner Nafisi?
I was just going to say that would be something we'd have to probably request in our budget letter because murals are really expensive. So,
Sure.
Something to think about.
And then Commissioner Koopman, you said you had a question before we gave it to Commissioner Wells. Do you still want to ask that question?
I was just make a comment and a question. The comment was, I think having the sign up at the King Harbor sign would be fantastic. I do feel there's more visibility at 190th and, or Anita and PCH, or Redondo and PCH, whatever you want to call it. I feel there's more traffic and more visibility there than there would be at Carnelian and PCH. I just feel like there's more people if you're going to Hermosa, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if people are thinking about going south a lot of times.
Probably
But,
the city doesn't own the property though, right? I can't think of, I think the reason why they were proposing that location is because it's city owned.
Right. So I think it's great right there. And I also think in terms of a banner, it doesn't have to be, so if you say June or summer, or it starts in June, you don't have to put a date on it. That's the beauty of the summer reading program. You don't have to start on day one.
Right.
So you can just say June to August and people can just come in June to August, right? And they don't have to worry about that. So the banner can be used multiple years, I would think. So just, yeah, those are my comments.
Thank you.
One thing we could do, just because I think the time they have reserved for us is like, I think the last weekend, they've temporarily reserved a King Harbor 2-week period for me, which is I think the end of May, beginning of June. So, we could just say, okay, well, since we're not meeting again till June, let's go ahead with this. It'll be a generic banner. So potentially it could be hung on the side of the library, in a future iteration, or just put under the King Harbor sign every year. And then still think about, something else for the main library. Because I know what you mean when I'm driving south on PCH, like especially at night when the lights are still on and you see the library. I mean, it's very eye-catching.
It is.
So Director Anderson, do you want the commission to take an action on this, or what are your thoughts?
Well, Commissioner Walls, what would you like to do?
I think if we're going to take advantage of the late May 2-week period that you have kindly kind of penciled in for, we would probably need to decide on the banner itself, unless we already have something that can be reused.
No, it would be some, it would have some summer reading program language that could be used every year, basically.
Do we need to request funding to get the banner constructed or created?
I think we would probably have it, or I could potentially ask the Friends, but I think we could probably find the money.
Can we use it in North Redondo across Artesia at some point, if it's generic?
Yes. I mean, maybe we could get two. I'd have to find out what the city has, the King Harbor sign is one of the things that rents out for these kinds of signs, I guess. I don't know what they have on Artesia, but that would be another option as well. I could ask them if they have something in Artesia as well, then we could maybe get 2 banners.
Well, I don't want us left out of the program.
Commissioner Koopman?
If I'm not mistaken, the place they hang a banner in North Redondo is over on Inglewood or Artesia, usually, just south.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a banner there before too.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea.
Can you guys, I just have to turn off the alarm. Just 1 second.
Uh-oh.
What did I say?
Hopefully nobody's breaking into the library to sleep in the bathroom.
Oh,
Oh, that's horrible.
So it sounds like we, generally speaking, if we have a banner at the main library or near the main library, and then one at or near the branch announcing the summer reading program, at least it will let people know that there's something cool. I think it's cool. Maybe not everybody does. And also people that have come to the library during the pandemic and found it closed or have been upset that it, has been closed. That might be another way to remind them, hey, we are opening back up, particularly if we're approved for the expanded hours or the restoration of hours, I should say.
I think I was also thinking, in terms of locations, we have the King Harbor sign, we have the place on Inglewood. I feel like have there ever been banners placed on Artesia and on 190th? Because I feel like there's a King Harbor sign on 190th over by Hop Saint. Maybe it's a small sign, but it's over there by, I think it's McKay. Is it McKay and 190th? By Ringe and it's just, I feel like there's a sign there, but maybe I'm mistaken. And maybe if we could put a sign, with an ideal location would be where I don't know what it's officially called, but where the power lines are and the grass belt.
Right.
That would, because everyone stops, not everyone stops there, but when you have to stop there, they stop there. It's an ideal location because you do have to eventually, if you catch the light, you stop there. So if we're allowed to do those other locations, I think that'd be.
You mean by the kind of by the green belt a little bit too?
By Phelan and
the crosswalk.
Yes, the crosswalk. Yes, exactly. There's the power lines and there's the green.
Exactly.
Is it a park technically? I don't know if it's actually a park.
Yeah, they turned it into a parking lot, parkette. Yeah.
Well, how about, I'm sorry, I think the cleaning crew is going to set the alarm off on me and for the police to come in here in a minute now, but
oops.
What if we said I could find out from community services if there's a place we could put it in North Redondo as well as another option. They may, if they have a place, if it's unbooked, we could make 2 signs. But I could find that out.
So Director Anderson, do you want I'm sorry, Commissioner Koopman, did you want to add something?
I was also thinking there's one more area. It's usually where Hermosa Beach hangs their sign. It's over by Aviation and Prospect, but Aviation and Prospect, they do it just slightly north on Aviation. And I almost feel like that's the border between Hermosa and Redondo. So I'm wondering if we could maybe
right by Big Lots.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. I don't know who really truly has jurisdiction there, but I think it'd be nice because that would be just trying to hit every artery, right? Every main thoroughfare. And it's essentially, hopefully, not always free, but better than, one will definitely be free, right? The one location that offered to us at King Harbor, but I'm not sure about the other locations. So there's 5.
I feel like it's always a Hermosa sign on that one, but I can find out.
Right. It is. I think it is a Hermosa sign. I think it might just be on the Hermosa side, but we can ask. Yeah. Right? They're not using it.
Right. On the west side of Prospect, it's Hermosa. So Redondo doesn't begin until the road right after.
Right. It's funny.
After Big Lots.
Yeah, that Big Lots parking lot is half Big Lots is on the Redondo side and the other half is on Hermosa. So that's kind of like, I can always tell which side is paved. It's usually the Redondo side that's paved and the Hermosa side isn't paved. So, so that's 5 locations. So hopefully we can get all 5 that would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Koopman. So Director Anderson, are you looking for an official request from the commission?
Yes, which I get is to create an SRP banner for King Harbor and find out if there is a second location in North Redondo we could also use to create a second banner for. Is that where we are?
I think Commissioner Koopman was a little more aggressive in her request.
I don't know how many banners we can afford.
So
Banners everywhere.
So I definitely know King Harbor, obviously. There definitely is one at Artesia and Inglewood.
Right.
I know that for a fact. So the other three locations I'm hoping for would be over, I believe it's McKay and 190th, over by the 7-Eleven and between Hop Saint. And then the other location would be the crosswalk where the parkette is on Artesia. And then the fifth location would be the Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach border by Big Lots.
Okay, so maybe it's, and I know Commissioner Worsing wants to say something. It's create an SRP banner for the King Harbor sign, find out if there's any availability and locations in North Redondo, and per what the library can afford, try to get some coverage up there as well.
Commissioner Worsing? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to go to what the library can afford or what the Friends are willing to pay for. I mean, gone from 0 banners to now potentially 5. I'm thinking 1 or 2 might be a good start, depending on how flush the Friends are with.
So
cash.
Commissioner Worsing, you have the floor. Would you like to make the motion?
I make the motion that we pursue a banner at King Harbor and look into the possibility of an additional banner or more based on availability and access
In North Redondo.
in North Redondo.
That sounds like a good motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Koopman. Any discussion? Commissioner Worsing, your hand's down. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote to approve the motion in second. Commissioner Koopman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walls,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Worsing,
Yes.
and Commissioner Willers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the director's report, J2.
Okay, so just a couple things to point out here. One is on February 17th, you'll see that the technical services librarian began coordinating something called the Palace Project ebook app. That is a California State Library initiative that they're rolling out this ebook app to every library in California. It's going to be loaded with like thousands of children's titles, but you can also purchase adult titles on it, or you can move your Libby or Cloud Library titles over to it, potentially. The idea is to model a program where a state has all its libraries on this one app and they can negotiate much better rates for ebooks. But have to see, how it goes. We probably aren't going to move over things from our other apps permanently right away. We'll see what the adoption is. We'll roll it out here with what they have on it. But anyway, that's coming, and certainly it's a great idea, and we'll see how it goes. And then I did have on March 28th that we held a Harwood Institute conversation with the teens because I had to go to jury duty. That didn't happen, and this had already been published, but we are going to do that in April. So we're trying to revive the Harwood community conversations. That's where you find out what people want from their community, and then you figure out how the library could address that vision. And then Chairperson Beauchamp, I'm also going to include some Harwood conversations again in our customer service survey, maybe trying to target working adults, and then the two of us can get together and talk about trying to do something in person with our working adults there. On April 2nd, the Friends of the Library held a mini book sale. They close to $1,000 again. So that's been profitable for them. And then on April 9th, we are having a National Poetry Month reading at the main library. This is going to be the first in-person adult program we've had since COVID. We're hoping to have a good turnout. I had kind of estimated in April people might feel comfortable coming back. So if this goes well, we'll start approaching some of our other program coordinators to see if they're ready to come back. And then I know of a couple other people who want to do programs at the library for adults. So hopefully we'll get all of that going again. And those were the things I really wanted to point out.
I noticed that the gate count and physical circulation were up and the digital circulation was down. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well, the digital circulation obviously really went up during just not just the closure of the library, but the closure of everything. Now that I think things are opening back up, it's trending downward, although my guess, and I would have to check this out, is it's still above what it was pre-COVID is my guess. I'd have to go back and look at those prior year statistics. But yes, and then we're seeing the physical circulation go up.
I just want to say I personally have reserved a few physical books just because, I don't know, it just moving around the city is becoming part of my thought process again when it wasn't for 2 years. So at least personally, I think I've checked out 3 books, and during the pandemic, I did everything digitally. So, Any comments or questions for the director's report? Okay, are there any next item on the agenda is member items and referrals to staff?
Could just a question. Does anybody have any topic that they would like to show in any of the library briefs to their council person? Anything they love at the library in particular that they would like to highlight in a library brief?
One thing I'm just going to throw something in there. People really like on the Facebook page, they like the history posts, and we do have this archive of Redondo Beach history that they continue to add stuff to every week. So that might be something.
Fabulous. Done.
Commissioner Nafisi?
So I have a lot of friends who are in the dual immersion program here in Redondo Beach. And so it's a bilingual program that's offered at Washington Elementary. And a lot of the parents are talking about how they love to, the children love to read in this program, but there are limited books in the Bob program at the library. So it's my understanding that you guys have a stash of Bob books that are Spanish at the library, but they are requesting additional ones, additional Bob Spanish books, very specific. So you guys have the list, but I guess there's only like 1 or 2, and so it's like this fight to get this, to get these books, and they want to read through it and they want to compete, but there's not enough books. In addition, the school doesn't have a healthy budget, I shouldn't say, to buy any additional books. So they're just constantly trying to get these books. They're always on reserve, and they just need. They're kindly requesting additional Bob Spanish books to be purchased. Is that possible? Okay. Or
yes, when Donia was here before she left, right before COVID, she was really trying to build up the Spanish children's collection at the North Branch because of this program at Washington Elementary. But I don't know if she ever got any requests for those specific books, but I'll definitely let our new youth services librarian know.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands on items and referrals to staff. So I guess the next item on the agenda is adjournment. We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Koopman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Commissioner Worsing?
Yes.
And Commissioner Willers?
Yes.
Thank you.
And let me just, that would be adjourning to June 6th, and I'm guessing we're going to be in person. So just FYI.
Oh, cool. I look forward to meeting you all.
Me too.
All right.
Hey,
Good
Susan, can I ask you a question after?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye all.